Utah's building problem. It's an investigative series we've been tracking for months now, and tonight a new state law takes the spotlight in our coverage.
Did you know to become a licensed cosmetologist in Utah, it takes 1,600 hours of instruction? A marriage and family therapist, 4,000 hours. Dental assistant, 1,200 hours plus. So how about a general contractor, the person you hire to build your home?
You may be surprised to find out it just got a whole lot easier. And that got investigator Brittany Glass asking, how is this good for consumers? Brittany?
Well, that's the big question after the Utah legislature slashed requirements. Our investigation found several lawmakers have jobs directly tied to the industry. Since the new law went into effect 4 months ago, more people have taken the general contractor's business and law exam than all of last year. And with more people who have less industry experience than ever, is there a better chance you'll get burned when buying one of your life's costliest purchases? They hadn't even spent 18 months in their brand new home before the retention wall on Bennett and KASSIE THURGOOD's Ogden property failed. As the couple told KSL in 2017, the home's foundation was quite literally tearing apart and was in danger of sliding down the mountain.
Yeah, we had the land surveyed, the soil tested. We relied on the city to inspect it.
We did do our due diligence, and now we're here.
That was then when, fearing for their safety, the family moved out.
I can't come up here. It brings a lot of anxiety to me.
Before their home was built in 2014, state law required general contractors to have 4 years of paid experience and pass a comprehensive trade exam to obtain a license from the Utah Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing, or DOPL. But in recent years, those requirements were slashed.
The elimination of the trade exam was this last session in 2019.
DOPL Director Mark STEINAGEL says at a time when Utah needs more contractors, lawmakers were committed to getting consumers the services they needed as fast as possible. Hence the goal. Make it easier for people to become licensed contractors.
Keep the stuff that actually protects and get rid of the stuff that is just a barrier to entry.
And if you've ever wanted to be a general contractor, all it takes now is 2 years working full-time in construction, a combined 30 hours of classroom time, and 2 exams.
There's a lot that goes into this business that 30 hours will not cut it, period.
5 yards will be here at noon.
James McBride has been in the business for nearly 30 years in Utah.
They only poured it at 4 inches.
This was his life's plan from the get-go.
I started out just as a laborer, and then I ended up being a superintendent relatively fast and just moved my way up through,
McBride became a general contractor when licensing requirements were some of the most stringent in Utah history. He says he wouldn't want to get in now.
What'll happen is you're going to get an influx of people that don't know what they're doing, that think they can run a construction company, and liens and lawsuits are going to skyrocket over the next couple of years.
Construction issues like the THURGOODs were already happening when state law was more strict. Now that it's easier to get a contractor's license,
it's going to be the wild, wild west is what it'll be. Not good.
It's still a license.
Hooper Representative Mike Schultz has sponsored much of the construction-related legislation the past 4 years.
I guess the fear is
a bill he sponsored, and that was passed unanimously by the Utah legislature, slashed license requirements for contractors.
All the trade exam was, I believe, was a way to kind of keep people out of the industry and make it hard, because it was a hard test.
Schultz says it's always been about promoting a free market.
Well, now you can just get anybody to come in, and what does that mean? Oftentimes shoddy construction work.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those people?
Well, I would say I don't think government should be in the business of picking winners and losers. I think that ought to be the consumer.
But what happens when the consumer becomes the biggest loser? Well, Schultz says that's where DOPL steps in.
And if it is a continued problem, obviously, with complaints that are filed, then the division can take that license away.
So we checked and discovered revoking contractor licenses doesn't happen as often as you might expect. DOPL told KSL Investigators of the more than 1,300 complaints received for contractors statewide so far this year, 676 resulted in discipline. 19% of those contractors disciplined had their license revoked. But 1/3 of those contractors were still allowed to practice since there was a stay on the discipline, begging the question, does DOPL's enforcement really deter bad practices? Representative Schultz also happens to be a contractor. one whom Doppel disciplined individually once in 2003 for hiring an unlicensed contractor to do work on a home. Schultz paid a $400 fine. 7 years later, his company was fined for a similar offense. That cost the builder $800. Schultz says in both circumstances, the cited contractors had a license when they were hired and lapsed during the jobs. Since he was elected, Schultz has sponsored or co-sponsored more than 20 bills related to construction or development. A number of those scaled back licensing requirements. His financial disclosures show 15% of his campaign contributions came from developers and real estate professionals.
I mean, do you think there's a conflict there that you accept money from this industry?
I make absolutely zero decisions based on who contributes to my campaign.
Schultz is also the owner of Castle Creek Homes, the company Doppel fined in 2010. Castle Creek built this house, the one with the failing foundation. Almost 3 years later, and after significant repairs, the Thurgood family has moved back in. They sued Schultz, his company, and the company that built the retaining wall after the family's insurance denied their claim, alleging in their filing that Castle Creek Homes negligently built despite numerous warnings not to do so. Castle Creek denied the allegations and countersued the Thurgoods, saying they waived any warranty on the home in favor of a reduced fee that the Thurgoods then never paid.
You know, ultimately that lawsuit was settled, and I can't talk about the specifics.
That's because both parties signed non-disclosure agreements, but Schultz maintains his company wasn't to blame.
We didn't hire that contractor that did the retaining wall. You know, when attorneys get involved, they like to go after everybody.
Although the homeowners couldn't talk to us, their complaint alleges hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. A costly, time-consuming ordeal.
I mean, is there a concern that maybe your constituents aren't being protected by some of this?
That's what forces bad contractors out, is when there's more competition and people go with the good contractors.
As for McBride, he's not buying it.
There's nothing wrong with competition, but when it's competition that has no knowledge of what they're really doing, that's bad for business, and it's ultimately bad for the consumer.
The construction industry is one of several professions that saw changes or reductions in licensing over the past few years as the legislature works to cut through what they consider red tape to employment. And Representative Schultz isn't the only Utah lawmaker with ties to construction and development. We investigate conflicts of interest alongside the state's building boom. That's tomorrow night at 10 o'clock.
A lot of work went into this.
A lot of work.
Okay, and you got a couple more tomorrow.
Yep, we sure do, 6 and 10.
Okay, we'll be watching. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks.
And of course, if you've experienced something that you think just is not right here, KSL Investigators want to help you out. Visit KSLinvestigates.com to submit your tips so that we can get working for you. You ask, KSL Investigates.